All right, it's Ben Greenfield, and this is it, our second episode on whether or not chiropractic medicine is really bull. We also talk about juicing cannabis and throwing out your cell phone, briefly touch on chemtrails, and a lot more with my guest, Billy DeMoss of Cal Jam, where I'll actually be speaking in January 26th through the 28th. I'll be in Costa Mesa, California, speaking at Cal Jam. So this podcast is quite interesting. My guest is quite interesting, and our sponsor is quite interesting. It's Mushroom Coffee. This podcast is brought to you by Shroomies. And there are a lot of different types of mushrooms and mushroom packets and powders that this company called Four Sigmatic creates. But may I recommend to you their Power of 10 mushrooms, their superfood blend, which is 10 different mushrooms, the most prestigious medicinal mushrooms in the form of a high-end dual extract, meaning that they do a hot water extraction and also an alcohol extraction. And that vastly improves what's called the polysaccharide content, the actual active constituents of that superfood blend. The mushrooms themselves are caffeine free. I put them into a cup of coffee and they boost all these mushrooms with rose hip for a natural source of vitamin C. They throw just a touch of stevia in there for some flavor. So check it out. Their superfood blend from Four Sigmatic. So to get it, go to Four Sigmatic. That's F-O-U-R. Sigmatic is S-I-G-M-A-T-I-C. foursigmatic.com/Greenfield and use coupon code Greenfield to get 15% off. This podcast is also brought to you by Bob's Red Mill. As you probably know, I've got a couple of boys and they have this podcast. It's called Go Greenfields at gogreenfields.com. Shameless self-promotion, or I guess it's promotion of my children. They're like mini-me's. So yeah, it's self-promotion. They love making and sharing, cooking and plant foraging and recipe tips. And they've been using this stuff from Bob's Red Mill because Bob's Red Mill makes healthy, gluten-free, organic, and stone ground products. They've been doing it for decades, minimally processed in a stone mill in Oregon by a one-armed monk. I made that last part up. Anyways, though, Bob's Red Mill makes their foods to be minimally processed and super clean, which is nice during the holidays when you're trying to enjoy sweet and comfort foods like cookies and baked goods and brownies. Why not make them with Bob's Red Mill so that they're guilt-free? They have a gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour. They have almond flour. They have corn flour. They have gluten-free chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, I just went there. They even have a vegan egg replacer for people who want to eat a vegan diet, and a paleo baking flour. So you could be paleo and vegan all at the same time. You get 25% off all of their extremely wholesome, organic, and gluten-free products. Even their oats are really good. I'm not a big fan of oats, but I actually do like Bob's Red Mill oats when I want to have me some oatmeal. So you go to bobsredmill.com, just like it sounds, bobsredmill.com, and you get 25% off with promotion code Greenfield. That's bobsredmill.com and use promo code Greenfield. In this episode of the Ben Greenfield Fitness Show,
he said his neck moved better than it's moved in years. And this is a guy that at first didn't really even want to be around me. And I was thinking, why do I even want to deal with this dude? He's like so negative. I just spoke at a concussion seminar in the Rose Bowl 2 weeks ago about the benefits of CBD. It's also neuroregenerative. Not to mention that, I mean, we get testimonial after testimonial after testimonial from people that were stage 4 cancer, and they start using this product of ours, and they go back and they're clear.
He's an expert in human performance and nutrition. Voted America's top personal trainer and one of the globe's most influential people in health and fitness. His show provides you with everything you need to optimize physical and mental performance. He is Ben Greenfield.
power, speed, mobility, balance. Whatever it is for you, that's the natural movement. Get out there. When you look at all the studies done, studies that have shown the greatest efficacy.
All the information you need in one place, right here, right now, on the Ben Greenfield Fitness Podcast.
Hey folks, it's Ben Greenfield, and guess what? Not that I've ever done this, but I decided to jump into controversy yet again and get a guy on the show who was called out during the relatively controversial podcast on chiropractic medicine on the Joe Rogan Experience, but also a guy who's a real powerhouse in the chiropractic community. He actually is the founder of what's called the Dead Chiropractic Society, which is this coalition of Southern California chiropractors who meet to discuss things like chiropractic philosophy and advancements. But perhaps even more interesting than that is he's the founder of something called CalJam, short for California Jam. I've been to CalJam, and it's basically a bunch of really cool experts in things like public health and global sustainability and chiropractic medicine who come from all over the friggin' planet to California for this amazing mashup of, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like rock and roll mixed with chiropractic medicine and a health expo and really good food. And it's a very, very interesting conference to attend. So my guest today is Dr. Billy DeMoss. Dr. Billy DeMoss. That's DeMoss. And the show notes for today's show you can also access over at bengreenfieldfitness.com/DeMoss. DeMoss. So, Billy, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, I'm honored to be on your show, brother. And I'm honored that you're going to be at CalJam this year.
Yeah, you actually are making a big mistake by allowing me to step up on stage at CalJam.
Why do you say that?
At least you're not putting a guitar in my hand. You're giving me a microphone to talk.
No, I loved your topic. What was your topic again? I'll let you say it.
It's going to be about how when you walk into a doctor's office or a chiropractic clinic or anything else, there are a lot of hidden variables that a lot of people don't have dialed in that can damage your body and brain, things like air and light and water and electricity. And I'm going to jump into the brass tacks when it comes to how to mitigate a lot of those things for everything from, HEPA air filtration to the right kind of water.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about how to look good naked. Wasn't that what you were going to talk about?
Maybe that's what I was going to talk about, and I'm completely messing it up because I don't have what I was going to talk about in front of me.
Yeah, I remember. I thought that was a great topic. That's great for my crowd.
Yeah, it could be how to look good naked, even though I'm wearing clothes right now.
Yeah, me too.
I'll wear clothes when I speak at your event too, I promise.
Right. Yeah. I strip every year at the event. I always change out of my suit into my rock and roll wear after I speak. So it's been one of those things that I do every year. I'm going to be 60, and it's like, I actually work out a lot, and I'm in better shape now than I've been in my life. So it's just my way. I say if I'm ever out of shape, I won't do it. So it pushes me to stay in shape. Not that I need that to keep me in shape. But
having to strip every year keeps you in shape. This is true.
Well, it does. If you're going to show off your body, you don't want to be, having any love handles or any, what do they call those things when it hangs over the edge?
Muffin tops.
Muffin tops. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, you actually are in pretty good shape. Like if you go to your website, you're pretty jacked, dude. What do you do for your fitness routine?
Well, surfing's the number one thing that I do. I surf literally every day when we have waves. So, and again, you don't see a lot of surfers who are out of shape that are riding short. I'm riding a shorter board now than I did when I was 18. So I'm riding a 5.9 versus back in the day. In the 70s, I used to ride 6.7s and stuff, but that was just the size then. And then if there's no waves, I've got a full beach work where I run deep sand. I do pull-ups on the lifeguard stands, push-ups. I do crunches. I take dumbbells out on the beach and do a bunch of dumbbell workouts. I do squats. And then if I don't have time to run to the beach, and then, I'm running barefoot in the sand, grounding at the same time. And then I'll go to the gym periodically to just fill in some loose ends, do Stairmaster, and I just go in and blast through different exercises and, do basically pace training and some strength training and really work on extension. So I'll do a lot of the stuff that I teach my patients in the practice to help reverse all the epidemic of force flexion from viewing those cellular phones that everybody uses that I still haven't stepped up. I don't own a cell phone yet, man. So I'm kind of a renegade when it comes
No, dude, I'm the only person you probably know that doesn't have. I just watch all the zombies around me with their heads glued in flexion, staring at that screen, and I just don't want to become part of that whole generation.
You're an anomaly, dude. Do you not ever want to like check your email or like go to Facebook, or just use a computer for all that?
I just use a computer, but you know what? Here's the honest truth. I've never done a text message. People go, just text me, man. I go, I don't have a cell phone, bro. I have a phone that's plugged into the wall, and then I've never done an email. So what I have my team do is they go through all my email, and they only pull out the pertinent ones that I really need to address, and they can handle the other ones for me, or there's usually, I guess, a lot of junk email anymore these days. And then they print them out on recycled paper, and then I will write an answer, not in pen because that's a little too high tech for me. I will write it with a number 2 graphite pencil, the answer, and it'll be a very short, to the point answer, because I don't type, Ben. That's my biggest drawback, but I think it's one of the biggest blessings. So a lot of times people see my post on Facebook and they think that, I'm not educated. But it's just because I don't type, and I like to keep things as concise as possible. So B.J. Palmer was good at that. He used to take words like thought and just spell it T-H-O-T, and I do that a lot just to kind of like instigate the trolls a little bit on Facebook and just keep everything in check. So
yeah, that's nuts. I even like the way you say it, dude. You say you've never done a text message. No, never sent one, never composed one, or never done one. That works too. But you actually, you have, in addition to these exercises that you do, I noticed on your website that you have a whole bunch of these moves I haven't heard of before, like the Wobble Chair and the Denner Roll, and you use like this neck traction device. What are these different exercises that you do? Like, what's the Wobble Chair?
The Wobble Chair is really good to kind of reverse all the, most people sit these days, and sitting is considered the new smoking. In fact, sitting is actually worse than smoking, in my opinion, on the opinion of a lot of experts, because it just destroys the disc in the lower back. So what that Wobble Chair does is it puts your spine through all the various ranges of motion, especially your low back, and really helps reinvigorate the disc. And then we have people maximally hydrate, maybe take some collagen. And then
is it like a chair that you actually sit on? Like, is that the name of the chair?
Yeah, it's a chair. I mean, it's like a $300 chair that it's basically it's kind of like one of those exercise balls. If you sit and did range of motion on that, which is it's not probably just as good, but it's the same kind of focus. Trying to put the lumbar spine through maximum flexion, extension, lateral flexion. Also, you do some figure eights. I have them do move obliquely. Just trying, because that disc is reliant on not only water, but it also is reliant on mobility to keep it healthy. And that's why I also like to add collagen to help feed the disc. So as we age, we make less collagen. So that's another benefit. And then right after they do the Wobble Chair, I have them, as long as they don't have high blood pressure, do some inversion on one of our inversion tables. And they do this all after they get adjusted. So the adjustments helps liberate the motion between that segment, and also helps realign things in the direction that we need it to go. And then I have them do those exercises to help just stop any spinal decay and degeneration. So it's just like you brush and floss, and there's things that you do for your teeth to prolong the life of your teeth. If people had the same intentions with their spine, not only could prevent some spinal decay in the spine, but if people really understand the real value of chiropractic is not about pain, even that's what most people think. It's about increase the life of the spine. The spine protects the nervous system, which runs everything in the body. We can not only stop the spinal degeneration, but stop premature nerve interference, because as the spine moves less and we get disc decay, it's going to create a lot of static or interference in the information that flows from the brain through those nerves to all the various organs, glands, muscles, all the sensory perception that goes on there. So whatever we can do to slow down the aging process of the spine is going to increase lifespan of the individual, in my opinion. Again, where's the research? It's going to be really hard to document that, especially when our profession doesn't have the kind of money that's required to do that kind of research. But there's enough research done by a good friend of mine, Deed Harrison, who does biophysics. So what I do is kind of a combination of a lot of different corrective care techniques. I do a lot of Pettibon stuff. I do a lot of biophysics stuff. Then I do some just basic diversified.
What's Pettibon?
Pettibon is just another corrective care technique, and I just use like the traction units that we use on the wall for the neck.
Oh, is that the one that you can hang yourself by your neck, like cervical neck traction?
Yes, yeah, right. But at the same time, most people do the typical neck traction, but it's pulling the curve out of the neck. So what that Pettibon traction does is it helps reestablish the normal curve. Like last night, I did a post on my Facebook page about, I showed a baby, like, the 9-month-old baby that was, crawling. And I showed how when a baby crawls, it's really developing that cervical curve in the neck. And I told people it's not good to promote your kids to walk too early until they get those curves, those secondary curves in the spine developed, i.e. in the neck and the low back. Because when the baby's born in a, it's been in a fetal position for 9 months. So when the baby starts to crawl, it helps establish that neck curve, lordosis in the neck and the lordosis in the low back. And the baby shouldn't try to stand up until those curves are fully developed. The sooner kids start to stand up, or if they don't crawl long enough, is what I'm trying to say, they don't have proper development of those curves, it's going to leave them more susceptible to scoliosis. And there's also theories that the cross crawl from crawling helps just really allows the brain to develop more naturally. And I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but there's one of my teachers, one of my biggest mentors, Fred Bard, said that if kids don't crawl long enough, it's going to lower their IQ. So just something to think about. And again, I don't know if that, I'm just telling people, don't push your kids to try to walk too soon. There's no advantage to it. There's more advantage for the longer
That's interesting. I've never heard of that. So the reason for that would be because their cervical neck has not progressed far enough to get them to the point where if you force them to walk too early, they'll actually wind up damaging the neck.
Yeah, because we're bipeds, right? And we're the only animal that, not the only animal, but like if you take like any other primate, for example, they don't walk as a biped because they haven't developed those curves. So we as bipeds have to have a developed lumbar lordosis and a developed cervical lordosis. And then the thoracic spine goes the opposite direction. So that's going to be a kyphosis. And when those curves are maximally developed, then the spine is going to be stable enough to be able to stand. If it's not stable enough, it's going to have a propensity for instability, which can tend to lead to things like scoliosis. And then the cross-crawling, the longer a kid cross-crawls or crawls, supposedly that helps develop the brains, so it allows the hemispheres to communicate better. Again, that's probably very theoretical.
Okay.
And it may be in my opinion. I haven't really done enough research on that. But again, I'm just saying, don't push them to walk too soon. There's no advantage to it.
I have one of those Pettibon cervical neck traction devices. And for those of you listening in, I'll put a link to this thing and this Wobble Chair that Billy's talking about in the show notes. And Billy, dude, one of the things I do in the morning when I walk downstairs and I'm at home is I'll take like a foam roller and kind of dig into some of the areas in the back of my neck. And I'll put a lot of times like magnesium lotion or something like that on there to relax the muscles first. I
just did my CBD cream on my neck this morning. I do the same thing just to help just loosen things up for me. So,
well, what I do is I do that, and then I'll hang myself from that neck traction device, and you get this awesome pop and like this elongation of the cervical spine. It feels amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Gravity is continually pushing us down towards our dirt nap. So everything that you can do to reverse the gravitational forces that's putting stress and strain on your disc and vertebrae is going to be beneficial, in my opinion, over, as long as you're consistent. It's like brushing your teeth and flossing. I mean, you don't have to do it. You don't have to go to a chiropractor, but those are things that we figured out. Again, if people didn't sit all day and sit on a computer and force flexion and play contact sports and have auto accidents, we wouldn't need chiropractors, But the thing is, we've done a lot of things to our spine that probably the hunter-gatherer didn't have to deal hunting and gathering. I mean, obviously there was other things that probably took out the hunter-gatherer, like starvation and other animals eating them and as such. We don't have to deal with today. People can just pop over to the 7-Eleven and get their breakfast, a Diet Coke and a cinnamon roll like Science Babe would eat, and think that would be just a sustainable breakfast. But we'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure.
Sure, we can bring up Science Babe throwing you under the bus here in a little bit. I actually want to ask you a couple more questions, though. This wobble chair thing you're talking about, could somebody, if they're listening in, is that something you could just get for your office to? I mean, can you sit and work in that, like typing and stuff?
They have a portable one, I think, for your desk.
Okay.
The thing is, I teach people is like sitting. It's like smoking. I mean, there's no way that you can sit and it be healthy for you. So I just everybody in my office here, we all have standing desks. I mean,
yeah. But did you see the recent study about how standing is just as bad for you too? Being in any one position all day long is just as bad for you sitting all day long. So the trick is and this is what I do, I just basically shift positions all day. Like right now while I'm talking to you, I'm on one of these balance board. This thing's called a fluid stance. And then I've got a call after you and I talk. And during that call, I've got this little treadmill workstation next to me, and I'll hop up on the treadmill, and then later on I'll stand, and then I'll go upstairs and I'll work at the kitchen table for a while, and I'll sit, but I have one of these saddle chairs, right? It splits your pelvis, so you kind of sit straight up and down. Right. So I just try and be in as many different positions as possible during the day.
Right. Well, the thing is nobody here really just stands in the same place. We move around a lot, and being chiropractors, we don't, obviously I'm bouncing from table to table to table. Yeah, and periodically I'm going to sit down. I'm not saying you can't sit down ever. It's just when you do it 8 hours straight a day, and then you've driven to work in traffic for an hour, and you drive home in traffic, and then go home and plop yourself on a couch and then get brainwashed by, I don't own a TV either. I don't watch TV. I'm kind of an anomaly, bro.
Good for you, dude. I actually respect that. I don't think with my business right now I could get by that well without a cell phone, because it allows me to be so productive when I'm standing in line at the airport, and I can bang out 7 emails and little things like that. But yeah, I don't have games on my phone, and I've got a lot of respect for you having resisted the revolution this long.
Yeah, I mean, I look at, in fact, Mercola's speaking at CalGym this year, and one of the things he's talking about is EMF and cell phones, and how, I guarantee you there's going to be an epidemic of brain cancer coming up in the very near future.
Well, what do you think about the new 5G thing? Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard about it.
Okay, so
but
basically,
this is how I get most of my news.
Yeah,
from people like you.
So 5G is fast. It's a higher capacity than the current 4G that a lot of these wireless systems will use. But I was reading an article yesterday. It was actually in a pretty good magazine. A lot of people don't know about this magazine. It's just called Paleo Magazine. They're really great articles and recipes and stuff like that. But this article goes into, based on the current government regulations, AT&T and Verizon and Sprint and any of these cell phone companies, they can now put 5G network. I guess it's some kind of a receiver or something, on lamp posts and all over neighborhoods. And basically, they're planning on spreading 5G across the entire planet in the same way that Google wants to float the balloons up above, I believe, somewhere up above certain cities to just give everybody wireless no matter where they're at in the world. And the millimeter wave of this 5G is the same. It's essentially, and some folks who are listening, you might call me out. I might be a little bit mistaken about the actual frequency, but from what I understand, the millimeter wave frequency that this 5G network uses is very similar to the frequency that cops will use when they fire those high frequency devices into crowds to cause confusion and disperse the crowds and cause people's heads to hurt. This is that same type of millimeter frequency that can cause way more neural damage, way more non-native EMF than even the current 4G wireless.
Wow. And you'd almost think there was some type of depopulation agenda, but we won't go down that road probably.
Yeah, actually, you know what? We might as well start to delve into some of this quackery stuff, or some of the stuff that can get you pinned as a quack. You got called out for being a quack on that Joe Rogan episode, and for those of you who want to listen to that, I'll link to it.
Well, it was actually before that. There was an article that Science Babe put out that said chiropractors are bullshit. I mean, right there. I mean, chiropractic would have never ever stood the test of time if the didn't work. You know what I'm saying? The reality is, and I posted about this the other day. It's like I don't know,
man. There's a lot of stuff that has stood the test of time that's kind of weird or may not have actual science behind it. So I don't know if isn't that called chronological snobbery to make that argument? Well,
maybe, but I mean, give me a for instance.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. I'll come back to
it. Come on
now. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So how about
Okay, well, I'm just talking about from clinical experience, and whether it's placebo or not, we get results, or people wouldn't come to us, man. I mean, number one, when people watch what we do, it's almost like, wow, do I really want to do this? But the thing is, like, I had a guy that came in last week. He was super apprehensive. He said the only reason he was here is because his wife sent him. And he's been suffering from low back pain for 10 years. Now it's gotten so bad that he was contemplating having surgery. And his wife goes, just go give him an adjustment. Or go get an adjustment. What do you got to lose? One time. Adjust the dude. He not only felt amazingly better in his low back, but he said his neck moved better than it's moved in years. And this is a guy that at first didn't really even want to be around me. And I was thinking, why do I even want to deal with this dude? He's like so negative. So I said, I'm going to give this guy, and I laid into him, dude. I was like one of those guys. He's an MMA guy. He's a real tough guy. Not that that's bad or good. I'm just saying it was just, that's the, tattoos, all buffed out, maybe doing roids. I don't know what he's doing, but he was just one of those guys who was kind of angry in the beginning. And I'm just going, I don't need that, dude. I've been in practice 33 years. I've been very successful. I don't need people's negative energy. So I put a little extra spizzerinked onto the adjustment there, and the dude was blown away by the effects of the adjustment. And again, whether it's placebo or not, I got the results, and a pain that he's had for 10 years was like 50% ameliorated with just one adjustment. And he signed up yesterday. I mean, he's agreed to come into care. Somebody that didn't even want to come in, from the results he got from one friggin' adjustment, has turned 180 degrees. And again, and the fact that this dude didn't even want to come and see me, and then I've changed him into a convert with one adjustment. I mean, and whether it's placebo or, again, placebo is the biggest healer that we've ever had, but it's not placebo, bro. I know what I do works. I mean, I see visual changes on X-rays, which are objective. It's not like, this is esoteric, subjective improvement with people. There's objective measurements that we can see, not only through thermography, but also through the adjustments and increased range of motion with people. So
talk to me a little bit about that, about this concept of thermography, because I know you do use some actual quantification in there, but what is thermography? A lot of people don't know what that is.
Well, we use it two ways. One, I do thermography on the spine. It basically just checks for inflammation, and it just gives us an objective measurement of pre and post adjustments to see a reduction in inflammatory responses in the paraspinal, tissues around where an area might be subluxated or irritated. So we just use that as another measurement to detect areas of irritation in the spine. And then we kind of correlate that with what then the biggest thing that I do is I can feel the spine. Like I said, it's like playing the piano, like you see like an Elton John or a Jimi Hendrix play guitar. It's after a while it gets to be such an art that they don't even have to think. It's the same thing when I'm working on a spine. I can feel areas of joint restriction in the spine. I can feel bogginess. I can feel muscle spasm. I can feel the swelling, which is the bogginess. And then I can feel joint play restrictions. And when I adjust people over a period of time, you'll see all that stuff resolve, and you'll see ranges of motion improve. You'll see improvement in structural alignment, especially forward head posture and loss of lordosis. And then sometimes we can even invigorate the disc by having them do not only the adjustments, but doing the traction and doing extension exercises and working on core and hydrating and collagen, et cetera, And then we see improvements on inclinometry, which is digitized range of motion. We see improvements on thermograms. We see improvements on X-rays. And then, of course, we get subjective improvements. But the biggest thing I see, and this is what I notice about chiropractic the most, is that we really take a person
out of sympathetic overload, fight or flight, and we move them more into parasympathetic. And you'll see people's blood pressure improve. The number one thing I hear from almost all my patients on their 12th visit re-exam is that they sleep better. You take somebody out of sympathetic and put them into parasympathetic, they're going to sleep better. They have better digestion in parasympathetic. They have more energy when they digest food better, and they get better sleep. They have better thought when you get more sleep. So sleeping to me is one of those things, and I'm not the world's best sleeper because my brain never shuts up, and I don't ever shut up. But if somebody's sleeping better, everything in their body works better, and then the body is, when it's in parasympathetic, goes into a better healing mode than happens in sympathetic. So I feel that's where chiropractic gets a lot of its benefit, where, that's where our research is headed with the work that Heidi Havock's doing, who spoke at Cal Jam last year.
What's the work that Heidi Havoc is doing?
It's all that how the adjustments really establish more mobility into the spine. And see what happens is when you have restricted range of motion in the spine, it sends this thing called nociceptive, abnormal negative impulses to the brain, and the brain processes that in a negative way and then sends negative impulses. And by normalizing that range of motion, it normalizes those nociceptive impulses and allows the brain to function better, and it's better, healthier to make. I call it's like if you have static. I don't know if you know what static's like when this microphone isn't connected properly, or like in the old days when you used to tune a radio, if it wasn't tuned properly, you'd have static. And by tuning up the spine, it increases the level of communication between the brain and the body and the body and the brain. And by adjusting it, you remove that static that just creates better homeostasis and moves the body from sympathetic into parasympathetic. That's probably the best way I can describe it.
Do you do other things aside from adjustments to move people from sympathetic into parasympathetic, like other strategies that you'd use in your clinic?
Of course, my friend, my brother. So what we do is I like to really teach them to be their own doctors. I like to teach them how to think, so they're not dependent on me or any other doctor for that matter. And when people learn how to think, they're going to question things like why they're taking dope or drugs for the rest of their life, whether it's a high blood pressure medication or sleep aids or thyroid medication. Again, some people may need that stuff, but again, I try to get people to understand, hey, dude and dudette, your body was smart enough to create you from a sperm cell and an egg cell and take those two cells and make 75 friggin' trillion cells, and it's been doing it for generation after generation. It knows what the hell it's doing, bro. So it also knows how to heal itself and put itself back in homeostasis. The reason people are sick today, 85 to 95% of the time, depending on who you listen to. If you listen to Bruce Lipton, he says 97.5%. People's health problems are because of shitty, hideous lifestyle. People, they're eating it's not even food. Most people are eating poison disguised as food.
Yeah, most people know that. I mean, most of our listeners know that when you're eating crap food, you're not going to feel that well. And
your listeners,
I think you're probably preaching to the choir when it comes to that. I think most folks are aware of that. What I was curious about was when it comes to like shifting the body into this state of relaxation, because I go to the chiropractor and I probably do it once, sometimes twice a month. And a lot of times it's when I'm just hanging out with my friend. I have a lot of friends who are chiropractic docs, right? So a lot of times they're just adjusting me. But I was just curious if you have other little things that you do to kind of relax people, because what I find is a lot of times, like if my low back is tight or it hurts, sometimes doing something as simple as like standing on a freaking vibration platform for a couple of minutes that just kind of seems to relax the body, or going and sitting in the hot tub for a little while, and not even getting adjustment or not even doing any deep tissue work, but learning how to just freaking relax for a little while.
Right. So we have,
I think a big part of it is just tension.
Right. Well, we have meditation workshops too. We have stress reduction workshops. So that's what I do. Okay. Every week, gotcha. Like tonight, I'm doing women's health. Every week we have a different workshop where I teach people concept. I teach them how to eat. A lot of people, I mean, even though I bet like I'm doing, I just read The Plant Paradox by Gundry, which I think is a great book. And I said, I'm going to try this for 2 months and see how it works. So I have not eaten any plants that have you read the book yet?
Yeah, I've read the book and I interviewed him, and I don't fully agree with him. I think
I'm just going to try it.
I think that to a certain extent, like lectins in plants induce a hormetic response in the same way that like eating antioxidants. Because like, you know, if I go out in my backyard, dude, and you know the deer are out there eating wild nettle, I'll be on a hike and I'll pick some wild nettle and just chew on it while I'm out hiking. And yeah, there's some lectins in there, but I'm also getting that bitter wild plant response that actually produces this hormesis. Now, at the same time, I'm not going to eat a whole loaf of like wheat bread or a vat full of like lentils that haven't been soaked or fermented. But I think that complete elimination of lectins it's kind of extreme in my opinion. Yo. I want to interrupt today's show to tell you about Organifi Red Juice. This stuff bumps up your metabolism all day long. It's chock full of adaptogenic herbs. They say that red things are good for your blood, and this is no exception. A bunch of red pigmented plants are in the red juice, like acai berry and beets and pomegranate and cranberry and raspberry and blueberry, which is also great for longevity. Oh, and the cranberries are good for your urinary tract infection, because I know all my listeners have that. And even pomegranates. Pomegranates have a lot of magic inside of them for cardiovascular health and inflammation and blood building and far above and beyond that. It's also got cordyceps, ginseng, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom, rhodiola. This stuff is jam-packed, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, soy-free, vegan, 100% USDA certified organic. Boom. It's called Red Juice powder. Tastes good too. Doesn't taste like a lot of these healthy superfoods do. Go to bengreenfieldfitness.com/Organifi and use discount code REDBEN to get 20% off. That's bengreenfieldfitness.com/Organifi with an I and use discount code REDBEN. And this podcast is also brought to you by Onnit. My friends at Onnit make amazing fitness gear. They've got the Death Star Slam Ball, the Han Solo Yoga Mat. They've got the Iron Man Kettlebell, Spider-Man Battle Ropes, a Captain America Shield Barbell Plate, Zombie Kettlebells, Monkey Kettlebells, above and beyond, and so much more. They have functional superfoods like emulsified MCT oil, meaning you don't have to blend it. You can just stir it into stuff. They have their fantastic walnut, almond, cashew butter. They've got Himalayan salt. They've got coffees. They've got teas. They've got supplements. Check them out. Go to onnit.com, ONNIT. Or you can go to bengreenfieldfitness.com/ONNIT and automatically get 10% off. It's as easy as that. Check them out. On it, you will find some of the most unique things to optimize your body that you're ever going to find any place on the intertubes. So, on it, bengreenfieldfitness.com/ONNIT.
All right, well, let me tell you what I was doing, and then you can tell me what you think. I'm big on juicing. I juice every day. I juice low glycemic vegetables, and I was juicing a load of cucumbers, which is one of the things he said you need to cut the skin off or cut the seeds out, because it's the seeds the big deal. Again, I just like to try stuff on my own body and see how it works. And I mean, not that, you know, what it does is I wake up in the morning with less stiffness in my neck and my lower back. So I'm going to continue doing it. It's also helped a little bit with brain fog for me. And to me, it's not that big a deal to try it. I just don't use cucumbers anymore. I OD'd. I had cucumbers every day, which is probably a problem to begin with. I also would eat tomatoes every day, which is a nightshade. I would eat squash every day because those were all part of my regimen. So, and also bell peppers every day. So, I mean, I just cut it out. I just use more celery. I use more licorice.
Yeah, and I think especially for people who already have leaky gut or gastritis or gut inflammation, that is something that can move the dial. It's kind of like this concept that if you have let's say bacterial imbalance or bacterial overgrowth or bacterial deficiency, you might have a period of time that you go through where you just can't eat dairy products because you don't possess the bacteria responsible for producing lactase. And then once you repair your gut, you might get to the point where you can have like things like raw dairy and yogurt and cheese and do just fine with it. So I think sometimes there's this concept of eliminating certain variables for a short period of time to allow the gut to heal can be beneficial in the same way that, you know, like not eating meat for certain times of the year, having like certain days where you don't eat meat helps with longevity and with detoxification. So I just think this whole idea of extremes in diet and saying, hey, I'm never going to eat lectins again, or I'm never going to eat dairy again. Like unless you have like a full blown.
No, I did. I never said that. I just said I don't plan on doing it the rest of my life. I just said I was going to do it for 2 months and just see how I felt at the end of it. I mean, I don't mind. That's what I use. I use my body as a science project. I mean, if it works for me, then I can promote it to patients. I can't promote something to my patients if I haven't done it myself, in my opinion. I mean, I like to experience. And I have a lot of patients that their goal is to lose weight, you know, and they may be doing paleo or whatever, and they're not getting results. I say, well, let's just try this to see how this works. It's been working for me. Not that I need to lose any weight. I mean, I weigh 150 at 5'9", so I don't think.
Yeah, I actually really I liked the book. I think that especially like he and this other gal, Dr. Terry Walls. I don't know if you've heard of her before. They both have a very good approach to this concept of a ketogenic diet, meaning that they actually encourage like this more plant-rich kind of ketogenic diet, which I like that approach quite a bit. Like when people ask me what's a good version of a ketogenic diet, a lot of times I tell them, you know, Stephen Gundry in his Plant Paradox book, he's got a good version of it. Dr. Terry Walls in her book, The Walls Protocol, also has a really good version of it. And the reason for that is because they both encourage a lot of vegetable consumption. And just in the case of Stephen, it's vegetable consumption that requires like, you know, pressure cookers and fermentation, a lot of these things that degrade the lectins or just avoiding lectin-rich foods. But yeah, ultimately, I'm a fan of the book. And I actually wanted to talk to you about one food that I've seen you write about as being a superfood. And that's CBD, dude. Why do you call CBD a superfood? I never thought of it as a food.
You mean I call it cannabis? You can call it whatever you want. Yeah, but cannabis has that negative connotation because it was vilified by the powers that be, especially like people in the cotton industry and the paper industry and the petroleum industry. It was just, it had been used medically for 10,000 years before, if you look at history on it. I look at cannabis as a plant that God created, he created, or maybe it, whatever people's, you know, whether evolutionists or creationists, God either created or God started the whole evolutionary process, whatever. I don't want to get into that conversation right now, but that's how people start shooting arrows at you. But this plant co-evolved with humans, and and so it's got a lot of beneficial effects. The fact that people have gotten high off of it is really where the vilification came from. And back in the 30s, they used racism as a way to sell the whole reefer madness bullshit, like black people. And that's not what I said, because somebody misconstrued the fact that I said this. This is a quote from the 30s, where they said that black people or Hispanics would smoke it and go rape white women, or they would think they were as good as white people. And then they said people would smoke it and go out and murder people. But then they would say it also, then people in the military would smoke it and make them docile. So which one was it? So, and then they changed it, and I learned this from Ty Bollinger. They changed the name from cannabis. They picked a name. They picked two Hispanic names, Mary and Juana, which are the two most popular Hispanic, and they use that, again, using racism to sell this demon weed that needed to be eradicated. And the reason they changed the name is because cannabis has been used in pharmacia for years to work on a lot of different maladies, whether it was, you know, arthritis or, you know, pain during pregnancy, or a lot of various things. Insomnia. It's great for anxiety. I mean, that's what I use it for, because like I said, I've got like a lot of demons inside my head, knowing what's going on the planet, and that's why I created Calcium. We'll get into that in a little bit, I'm sure. But so cannabis has been used, and it's a plant that we co-evolved with. And the thing is, it's got a better omega-3 6 ratio than fish oil, and it's a plant, okay? It's a complete protein. It's probably one of the most complete plant proteins on the planet.
Yeah, a lot of people will juice it now for like the chlorophyll and the minerals and the terpenes.
Every day. Terpenes.
You juice it?
I do. I have plants in my backyard.
Where do you I was going to ask you where you get it, because you can't buy it at the grocery store. Obviously, you just grow cannabis and you juice it.
Yeah, it's in my backyard, and when I was in the 70s, bro, I was a hippie. Okay, and I was a chemistry major for all the wrong reasons. I graduated from high school in 1976. That gives you an idea of the time era. And I went to college at Cal State Fullerton, and I was a full-on. I built hydroponic systems before there were hydroponic systems. I grew indoor, and I didn't grow it because I was trying to be a drug dealer. I grew it because I just was fascinated with growing the plant. And I developed a relationship with the plant, not in a negative way or a positive way. And again, I don't see it any different than like if, people go to Napa and talk about drinking Cabernet or their Merlots. To me, alcohol is a much more dangerous, especially for me, and that's why I don't drink. It's a much more dangerous drug than cannabis will ever. Nobody's ever died from cannabis. And with this big opioid epidemic that we got going on, it would be the thing, and the powers that be don't want cannabis in there because it would destroy all the high blood pressure medications, anxiety medications, the sleep aids, all that would go away.
Yeah.
But the reason I call it a superfood is because you can juice it. I actually put it in salads. I throw it in my smoothies. I juice it with turmeric for its anti-inflammatory properties, but also it's thought to be neuroprotective, so it's going to protect your brain. Like I just spoke at a concussion seminar in the Rose Bowl 2 weeks ago about the benefits of CBD. It's also neuroregenerative. Not to mention that, we get testimonial after testimonial after testimonial from people that were stage 4 cancer, and they start using this product of ours, and they go back and they're clear. So again, they've already been given. They've been given up by the medical profession. They do this as last resort, and then they get results. It should be something I think most people should use as a first resort for those conditions. But I look at it as like when I was a kid, my dad would take me down to this creek when I lived in Nebraska, and there'd be just droves and droves and droves of cannabis growing. It was hemp. It wasn't high-grade marijuana, which has been hybridized to have super high levels of THC. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual hemp that has real low levels of THC and higher levels of CBD, which is where most of the health benefits are at. But also the hemp was what that you could use to make fabric, which is way more cost effective than cotton. It doesn't require all the pesticides that cotton needs. It's a great product for you can make hemp oil out of. We could really literally probably get off a lot of the fossil fuels that we're so dependent on if we grew more hemp. It's a great, medicinal. It's got so many in fact, the word canvas came from the word cannabis. So all the sails and, covered wagons and all the flags and even the Declaration of Independence was signed on hemp paper. And they were required to grow hemp in the late 1700s to pay their taxes because it was such a beneficial plant. And then it was just eradicated because, we got the cotton industry that doesn't want any competition. We got William Hearst and the paper industry that doesn't want any competition. Oil doesn't want any competition from a plant-based biofuel. Henry Ford built an entire car, with the exception of the drivetrain, out of hemp fabric and hemp biomass. That was, if you could hammer it with a hammer, it wouldn't even ding it. It's so much stronger and so much lighter than metal. So it's got so many benefits, but the biggest benefit is that it's such a highly respiratory plant. It's got such a photosynthetic effect that we could really help clean up the air, which we've decimated half of the world's forests. So by raising more hemp and using crop rotation like we should, we could not only help regenerate the soil, but also at the same time we could help with some of the carbon debt that we're experiencing. So I'm a big fan of it.
The only problem with it is, it has lectins in it.
Does it?
It's a high lectin plant. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's as high as like wheat, but it's definitely one of those plants that is high in lectins, which I suppose if you were to do something like soak it or ferment it or cook it out or something like that, it could probably get rid of some of those issues. But, one thing that I do that you might be interested in is I actually vaporize very small amounts of marijuana, but I blend it. I learned this trick from Paul Chek. I blend it with essential oils. I don't know if you've looked into vaporizing of essential oils before, but it's pretty freaking fascinating how many different constituents are in essential oils like limonene and lavender and peppermint that you can actually you can vape into your lungs along with just a little bit of marijuana if you wanted to. Also a little bit of like any green tea or any tea leaf that's dried, as well as any organic tobacco. I have this one called a Northern Shag tobacco, and you can make these fantastic mixes with tobaccos and essential oils and herbs and teas, and just vape these straight into the lungs. So I have an infrared sauna, and now what I do in the evening while I'm reading is I go in my infrared sauna, and it's like a little. I use this thing called a Dabuda vaporizer. And it's like this little. It's like. What am I? I'm blanking out. It's like a hookah, right? And you just sit in there and you kind of smoke a little bit of tea and essential oil, and it's a really kind of cool way to experience a lot of these benefits that you're alluding to that you get not just from cannabis, but also from essential oils and from tobaccos and from teas. And I think a lot of people don't tap into these so-called superfoods enough because, as you've just pointed out, we kind of associate them with negative political consequences, but ultimately, right. I agree. It is a superfood. It is a superfood for sure.
Yeah, and I vape every day for a lot of reasons. I mean, I've never understood why. Again, I don't want to beat this horse, but alcohol's cool and pot's bad. To me, it really opens up my brain and helps me think. I mean, I have to say, I don't think Cal Jam would ever be what it is if it wasn't for the fact that I think a little bit outside the box, and I attribute a little bit to the fact that it's okay. What's wrong with it? It's having some fun while we're here. I mean, somebody can point their finger at me and I vape too. I don't smoke it, and I vape really. I smoke different vape strains that are really low in THC and higher in CBD, so you don't get that where you're out of your mind kind of high, but you get a real nice sedative effect. But also, it opens up your brain. I mean, as a musician, it just helps, increase my creativity. But also, like you said, there's all the different terpenes in there. There's 100 different cannabinoids in there, which our body can use to help balance our endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is the system in the body that really modulates every other system, including the nervous system. So that's why we're seeing such benefits when using CBD and THC to get the benefits that we get, because it helps create homeostasis in the body by balancing out, because as we've got all this electrosmog, Wi-Fi, fluoride, glyphosate, chemtrails, all these different constituents that are bombarding our body makes less endogenous cannabis, because your body makes cannabis. There's a product called 2-arachidonyl glycerol, and there's also an anandamide that the body makes itself that helps balance the different CB receptors, the cannabinoid receptors. There's a CB1 receptor, which is mostly in the brain and central nervous system, and then there's a CB2 receptor, which is mostly in the immune organs and glands. When that's why people that are suffering from cancer benefit from anything that helps balance the CB2 receptors, and people with pain or anxiety is going to benefit from things that help balance the CB1 receptors. And again, that science is wide open. It's a wide open frontier. And I'm just excited to be at the forefront of this, because I know this is going to explode in the near future as a superfood that people can use. I didn't know it had lectins in it, though. That's surprising to me.
Yeah, it would only be if you eat it. The other thing is these CBD vape pens for people who can't access THC legally or are concerned about getting tested at work and that type of thing. I actually have a few of these up on my bedstand, and all it is it's cannabidiol, hemp-derived cannabidiol, CBD oil with no THC. And it tastes like it's wonderful. It's mouthwatering. It's like hemp mixed with cinnamon with a little bit of pine. and it's just all CBD. It's called the one I use is called a Thrive vape pen, and you can travel with it. It's totally legal, and it's just 100% organic hemp oil with none of like a lot of these vape pens have like propylene glycol and nicotine and things like that in them, and this is just pure 100% CBD. It's actually a really cool way to get a lot of the benefits we're talking about without even getting any psychoactivity at all.
Right.
Now, Billy, I wanted to make sure I touch on a couple other things with you. You know, we talked a little bit about lectins and the gut, and about, you know, the effects of CBD is almost like a quote superfood unquote. But then there's also this idea behind GMOs, and we've talked about GMOs on the show before. People know that they're definitely bad news bears, and I know that you've done a lot of writing on GMOs. But I'm curious, for you specifically, how do you protect yourself against things like glyphosate and GMOs, because they're so prevalent nowadays? Is it supplementation? Is it specific shopping habits, or what do you do?
Well, I mean, I buy only organic food. I mean, and then I make.
Yeah, but doesn't a lot of organic food have glyphosate on it now, just due to the spread of glyphosate?
Possibly, but I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, you got to eat. You know, I mean, you know, there's mercury in the fish, and I still eat that. I mean, we've got to do something. But I detox too. I mean, if you're going to live on this planet, and I'm speaking at Dan Pompa's gig this weekend. I do his program with True Cellular Detox. I mean, you've got to get the metals out. You got to. But I mean, what do you think? What do you think about Zach Bush's stuff for the lignite? Like, that's what my kids have been using. They keep like a bottle of that in the fridge. I'm going to ask him to speak at CalJam because.
Yeah, you should. He's super smart, and this lignite stuff coats the lining of your stomach and essentially kind of keeps a lot of the glyphosate from ravaging your stomach. Like, we still use all organic foods, and we grow a lot of our own foods, but like that's one of the few supplements that my kids take is they take a shot of that before every meal. Yeah, we have some in the cabinet at home too. I mean, I've probably done it 3 times. Mary Jane, my wife, bought some. That's your wife's name, Mary Jane?
Yeah.
That's fitting.
Yeah, it's gotten us out of a couple problem issues in the past, back in the 80s. So yeah. Did you listen to that Joe Rogan podcast? You know, in which you were, of course,
basically thrown under the bus. Now, I know that we don't have a ton of time to take a deep dive into all the different things, but overall, like, what do you think are a few of the things? Well, let me ask you this, man: Are there chiropractic docs out there who are quacks?
Of course, but that's true of any profession. I mean, you could go from, there's plumbers that are probably ripoffs. I used to have an auto mechanic that was a ripoff until I figured out that I should probably go somewhere else. I mean, there's going to be crooks in any trade. I'm sure there's MDs that are, not 100% upfront and honest. I mean, you're going to have bad seeds in any profession. So, but on the whole, I feel like chiropractic is such a safe intervention. Even if the dude is a quack to some degree, it's not going to have the same detrimental effects as if somebody's doing like surgery on people when they didn't need surgery. So, again, that happens. That's why it's important for you to use referrals as a way to discern who you go to, and you get a good reference from one of your friends as far as determining on what chiropractor you select.
Now, how would you go about doing that if you weren't just going to get a referral from a friend? Like, if you move to a city, you don't know people there. Like, are there directories? Are there ways to identify who somebody good is going to be if you don't want to run into somebody who's just like, basically, well, more or less a quack who's going to sell you a bunch of supplements and not really, use things like thermography like you're using, not teach people therapeutical exercises, and just basically, and in some cases, I've been to docs like this. They won't even, touch you from an adjustment standpoint. They'll just be like, yeah, you need to take this fish oil that I'm selling.
Right. I mean, I think it's up to the consumer to do their research, in my opinion. And again, whatever that takes, there's not really, I would have people go to more chiropractic resources like the ICA, International Chiropractic Association, the ICPA, which is the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. Those would be good resources. Those are people that think the same way I do. Also in California, where I practice in Newport Beach, we have the CCA, California Chiropractic Association. Those would be great resources. Those are people that I feel are upfront. again, whether the person has the technical skills to adjust or not, and whether you're comfortable with those technical skills is going to be something to your discernment. Again, there's no way to really gauge that or monitor that, in my opinion. And again, maybe you might need to try a couple chiropractors until you feel somebody that not only you feel comfortable with, but somebody that you get results. I mean, there's many times, not many times, there's a few times in my 33 years of practice where people don't get results with me, and then I refer them to a friend that may utilize a different technique that somebody may respond to. So, again, not everybody's going to fit lock and key into a perfectly, the perfect system. So it's important for the consumer to do their own research.
I interviewed Dr. Jason Yeager, and he went into like some of the practitioner directories that he likes, and when I interviewed him, I also featured an article by Dr. Patrick Gentempo, and I'll link to those for those of you listening in if you want access to some of those directories. Just go to bengreenfieldfitness.com/DeMoss. That's DEMOSS, and you can access that other podcast that I did. But ultimately, it sounds to me like it's a combination of asking around and then also accessing some of these directories of certified professionals that you vouch for.
I mean, I think to me, it's like I always consider our first visit like a first date when I have a new patient. Number one, I want to see if I want to work with this person, and number two, that you want to see if you can dance together. I mean, the thing is, it's going to be a mutual relationship where I'm going to do some of the work, they're going to do some of the work, and if they don't follow through, then their health's going to be diminished. And number two, then my reputation is very important, and I want people to follow through with what I ask them to do, and I know we can get the results that chiropractic will get for them.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I've got one other question for you, because you started to rail on this before we even started recording, and since I haven't talked about it much on a show before, I want to hear your thoughts on it. Why are you such an advocate or a proponent of the idea that chemtrails are a real thing? What's up with chemtrails?
I mean, I grew up as a kid, and I wanted to become a meteorologist, believe it or not. I mean, when I lived in Nebraska, I used to just be enthralled with tornadoes and thunderstorms. And when I grew up, there were not any of those funny trails in the sky. And then I started noticing probably early 90s, all this spraying going on. And again, I mean, it sounds like major conspiracy. The government admits that they're doing it. You've got, books that talk about stratospheric aerosol injections, about limiting the amount of sunlight that comes through. It's nanoparticulate aluminum. There's a lot of people, Dane Wigington talks about, there's all kinds of research on this. It's just pretty obvious to me when you see it going on, and people will tell me it's just normal contrails. But I mean, I've never seen contrails when I was a kid dissipate across the entire spine and fog and haze the entire horizon. I mean, that's the thing that's totally new to me. And when you've gone through different periods of time and you've seen a change in just how blue the skies are and to what now we see on a daily basis in some parts of the country, we get a break every summer. They don't spray at all in the summer here. And people may say that that's because of weather. But it's one of those things that I just think needs to be addressed. And when people admit it in the government and you read a lot of books about it and admit that that's a possible way to prevent global warming, whether global warming's happening or not, but that's just what the powers that be may be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's possible that some chemical spraying may be inducing some environmental damage, and that there might be kind of like a chemical fallout from some of the things that we might find in jet fuel and things like that. But I don't know that it's like this conspiracy to like mind wash us or to control population via these condensation trails. That's just something I have yet to see evidence behind. You're one of the few guys I've had on the show who's actually written about this a little bit and has some strong beliefs on it. So I thought I'd ask you about it.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is look up, bro. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you see it going on every day. I mean, when your sky is completely clear, like I'll be surfing on it, and all of a sudden the sky's clear, and then here comes all the chemtrailers, and in a matter of a half an hour, the whole sky is checkerboarded, and then you see that shit spread out, and it's just this clam chowder haze that covers the entire sky. I mean, what is there to, I mean, it's right there in front of you every day.
Yeah, I guess I just always assumed it was like, for example, like condensation, like condensed water vapor from airplanes or from rockets flying at high altitude.
Here, let me ask you this question. Like, you like on a cold day when water vapor comes out of your mouth, it doesn't stay around for 4 hours. It dissipates. And it's the same thing with the
but there's a lot less like, horizontal and vertical wind shear when you're on the ground and different humidity levels. It seems to me like there's a lot of confounding variables for us to say that it's like a mind control experiment.
Well, I didn't say it's a mind control. I said it's an experiment to help prevent global warming, according to them. But they're using
to help prevent global warming.
Yeah, because what it does is it decreases the amount of, it creates global dimming, because what it does is it prevents sunlight from coming. When you're spraying metal in the sky, bro, it's going to limit it reflects the sun back out.
So what you're saying is they're trying to do something good for the planet if it is indeed something that's being consciously done, but that the problem with it is that the chemicals that wind up in our environment as a result of the measures they're taking to stop global warming wind up damaging humans.
Right. Well, you look at you look at like some of the soil samples in like Lake Shasta areas, like the aluminum levels are 10,000% higher than they're supposed to be. I mean, it's hard to really go up and do research and like grab a chemtrail. I mean, who's going to go up there I'm sure that space up there is, heavily regulated. You can't just fly a plane up there and fly behind a chemtrail plane and try to grab nanoparticulate aluminum, which is probably hard to do to begin with. So again, you just have to use a little bit of common sense and ask questions. Why is this going on? And from there, my goal is just to create more awareness and just get the conversation going so that we can discuss this as a human species. Because if they're admitting that they're doing to prevent global warming, we have to look at the repercussions of breathing in nanoparticulate aluminum, barium, strontium, as far as the negative consequences it's going to have to cognitive function and cognitive decay as we get older.
Interesting. In the meantime, let's say that we did want to protect ourselves. Is there something that you'd recommend that we do?
Yeah, I go back to Dan Papa's True Cellular Detox, which I'm speaking at this
Just
week.
detox your body. Yeah, I have an interview with him. I
mean, I have my, blood tested, and I was high on aluminum, I was high on mercury, I was high on lead. So my objective is to do the program. I'm gonna really hit it hard again after CalJam, and then go back and have the blood work done. So we're not going to talk anymore about the Science Bag gig, huh? I thought that.
Well, we did a pretty big podcast on that, but I wanted to just kind of get your overall thoughts on it, and
let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question.
It's a horse that's potentially been kicked to death. Yeah, go ahead.
You think any of these people that do these kind of bullshit articles and these podcasts are maybe paid for trolls that are just told, "Hey, I want you to go out and take this guy down"? The reality is that.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you read Ryan Holiday's book, Trust Me, I'm Lying, about the media and how easy it is to manipulate the media and how much underground, how much cash is being traded back and forth. I mean, dude, I get like 4 or 5 emails a day from folks who are like, "Yeah, I'll pay you to put a link to such and such in this, hide this link in an article on your website." So I know that stuff definitely happens. It occurs, and so yeah, I certainly wouldn't dispute the fact that it's possible that. Someone may have paid her to write an article like that more than what the going rate would be for it. I forget what website it was published on. Was it Gawker or it was something like that. Anyway, right. But she's been on my show as well, and yeah, I think that in any industry there's going to be a problem with unethical journalism, but ultimately,
how did she come off on your show?
She's.
Because she didn't come off
she's not super scientific. That's the problem. And
she's not a babe either. I hate to say that, but that's my opinion.
I appreciate questioning of authority and questioning of the status quo and questioning some of the things we might swallow hook, line, and sinker. But at the same time, I think that some of the things that she says are not scientific. But you could say the same thing about the food babe, right? The whole you got yoga mats in your Subway sandwiches. Well, the fact is that's a natural chemical that gets metabolized into water in the body when you consume it. and you know, so there are people out there like the Food Babe and the Sci Babe they're cool people. They've both been on my show before. I don't think they're bad people, but at the same time, sometimes they say things that are flawed. But you know, I've said things that I've had to go back on my site and say, hey,
we all have.
You know, this is something that's not true. Yeah,
you're pushing the needle. Sometimes that happens. And I think just Joe Rogan had a bad experience with chiropractic, so he's just got an accident with chiropractic. So
yeah. Well, either way, what I'll do for those of you listening in is, first of all, I'll link to Billy's fantastic event in California. Even if you're not a chiropractic doc, you should check this out. It's fun. It's like rock and roll and a health expo and Cal Jam. It's called the Cal Jam Conference. That's at californiajam.org. And I'll link to Billy's website as well as some of the other things we talked about, like the Wobble Chair and the cervical neck traction and the CBD pens and some of these things. But I'll also link to, for those of you who want to take a deeper dive into this whole Cybabe thing, the article that Dr. Patrick Gentempo wrote on my site, and also the interview that I did with Dr. Jason Yeager about kind of a formalized response, point by point to a lot of the stuff that was brought up in that particular Is Chiropractic Bullshit article and interview. And in the meantime, Billy's one of those guys who's out there obviously thinking outside the box, obviously asking a lot of questions. And Billy, I appreciate guys like you and what you do. So thanks for coming on the show and sharing this stuff with us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, brother. And look forward to seeing you January 26th, 27th, 28th in sunny California. Where are you at anyways?
I'm up in snowy Spokane, Washington. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I love it though. I love it up here. I just built up my snowboard last night, so I'll be carving the slopes hopefully by next week.
Well, you want to go helicopter skiing with me in March?
I'll tentatively say yes. I generally don't turn down an adventure. So yeah, that sounds like a blast, dude. All right, so folks, bengreenfieldfitness.com/DeMoss, DEMOSS is where you can access the show notes. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, along with Dr. Billy DeMoss, signing out from bengreenfieldfitness.com. Have an amazing week.
You've been listening to the Ben Greenfield Fitness Podcast. Go to bengreenfieldfitness.com for even more cutting-edge fitness and performance advice.